Number one, in Surah Al-Mulk, the chapter titled The Sovereignty, which is chapter 67, verse 14, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah the Most High, says, أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. Does he who created not know while he is the subtle, the acquainted? And this is in Sahih International's translation of the meaning. Muhsin Khan's translation of the meaning says, should not he who was created know? And he is the most kind and courteous to his slaves, all aware of everything. So in Ibn Kathir, there are two possible meanings here. That the creator should know, and the creator should know his creation. So in summary, it's a rhetorical question. Does he who created not know his creation? If I invent a machine right now, if I create a machine, no one's going to know more about this machine than I would, except God, of course, because he created me and everything that I do anyway, right? He knows what I'm going to do. But on a created being level, I will know most about this machine than anybody else who didn't do it, right? That's pretty straightforward. And that's why now we're going to be discussing the Noble Quran and science, and we really have to talk about this at the outset here, because again, sometimes some Muslim apologetics try to take the Quran and maybe the Hadith as well, and they almost try to force it to go with the science. But the thing is, you got to remember, science is a theory in the end, right? I mean, even the Big Bang Theory. You know, someone says, "Oh, the Quran says it's talking about the Big Bang Theory." Be careful. You know, these are theories, and if you try to force the Quran to if you force it to be interpreted to be the Big Bang Theory, and then the Big Bang Theory, remember, theory is somehow disproven and shown or replaced by another theory, speculation, right? Oh, see, the Quran is wrong. Again, you can't force the Quran to, because in reality, you know, unless we know for certain what the Quran means, we have to be careful not to allow scientific theories and discoveries by human beings who have little knowledge to begin with, compared to the knowledge out there, to dictate what the divine revelation is saying. The Noble Quran describes the nature of man in all aspects, including his psychology. The Quran is not a history book, it's not a math book, it's not a book on oceanography and astronomy and psychology, it's everything. The Quran is a very interesting book because you find that traditionally when we write books, we have to have an introduction, we have to have the beginning of a story, we have to have, you know, the characters being told, and then talk about the climax or the highest point in the story, and then you have a conclusion and an ending. And the Quran is not like that. The Quran, actually, the way that you read it, sometimes you might find it strange. It's talking to you. The way you and I have conversations, if somebody else looked at me and you talking, they would have no idea and they would not be able to follow us, because you and I know what we're talking about. We're going to talk about this topic, and then we jump to the next topic, and then I jump to the next topic. You find the Quran, it does that, and you're thinking, well, that's kind of a strange arrangement. This doesn't seem logical. Well, wait a second. It's addressing human beings, and God created us, and He knows how we are, and so He is talking to us the way that we talk, or the way that we would understand and talk to each other. So the Noble Quran describes the nature of man in all aspects, including his psychology. As we noted in the last module, behavioral finance addresses the psychology of man, and as Muslims, our primary sources are the Noble Quran and the Sunnah, according to the understanding of the Salaf, or the companions of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and the two generations, especially the two generations that followed them. Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, told us that the best people are his generation, followed by the next, peace and blessings be upon him. Again, like I said, we should be careful not to force the Quran to comply with the sciences, because much of science is based on theories which can either be proven or disproven. We got to be very, very, very careful in this aspect, right? For example, and I'm going to talk about this, and it's a controversial topic, but we're going to talk about it. We're not shy to discuss this issue at all. The idea is thrown around today that certain people are naturally born as homosexuals. Now, we don't care what science you bring us. You know, our primary source is the revelation from Allah, the Most High. Because again, science is based a lot on theories anyway. This is rejected in Islam because the Noble Quran severely condemns this action of homosexuality. Now, to add to this fact, upon investigation of this quote-unquote or so-called scientific fact, one will realize that the actual scientific study done was actually flawed to begin with. And I'm going to take you through this and show you how flawed this study was, and the things that we got to be very, very careful about. In the 1980s, there was a claim that there is a gland in the base of the brain that is small in the case of females and large in the case of males. There's a gland in the brain. The males have a bigger gland than the females. So homosexuals, it says, had a smaller gland than males, but larger than that of females. So they're kind of in between. And so that would explain why the man who's got a gland that's close to the female gland is a homosexual and he's attracted to men. And maybe the female, it could be taken on the female that because maybe the gland of this female is closer to being male, that she's attracted to females. Rhetorical question: is this proof? Well, the claim is that it is biological proof that homosexuals have different makeup, so they are not homosexuals by choice. So they're born that way. So how can religions condemn someone born that way? Doesn't God know what He created? I mean, if there's a God, this is what they tell you. If there's a God, shouldn't God accommodate everybody? You know, whatever happened to the message of love and this and this and this and that? And I mean, you know what it comes down to? It just comes down to humanism. That human beings happen to be the ones that know the most what's good for them, which is ridiculous because we just showed right now that even behavioral finance tells us that human beings are not rational. That the assumption that human beings are rational and have knowledge, and they use that knowledge to choose what's best for them, even in finance, even in materialistic studies, which deny God outright, people are admitting in behavioral finance that human beings are not rational. And they don't know everything. And they're irrational and they make wrong decisions because they don't know. Those people of religion, especially the Muslims, are telling you the same thing, but they're telling you to accept the truth. It's not pretend that the human being just suddenly knows everything and they're on top of everything, right? So yeah, homosexuals are born, and it's not it's not their choice. So someone taking this simplistic assumption will say the conclusion is that this is a natural thing, not a learned behavior from the society. So this person was not influenced by the society and everything like this. This is more like, oh, I was born that way, so why do you blame me for it, and why do you want to punish me? Why do you want to look down upon me? And on and on and on and on. Okay. Well, this study here that was done, this biological study, number one, it was done on dead adults. This person's already dead. You didn't look at him when he was alive to see, or she was alive to see if the gland is bigger or smaller. They would cut open the dead brain and analyze the brains and tell you, hey, see, the gland is bigger or smaller or whatever. Who is to say that the child was not born that way, or was born that way? Sorry, I mean, can you be sure that the child was born like that? This is a dead corpse that you're analyzing right now. How do you know that? There's no evidence for it. That study does not present the possibility that that this is something that happened maybe after the death took place. Maybe the gland changed in size. I don't know. As for the decrease in the size of the gland that's in the brain, it could be as a result of the homosexual activity itself, not the cause of it. So because somebody was practicing homosexuality, men with men, women with women, men with men, for example, that because of this activity, this gland in the brain, from this activity, from this psychological effect on this person, from doing this lowly action, that the gland became smaller than that of a man's. For example, what's to say? Who's to say that this is not a possibility? Right? Again, you can't definitively prove that. And at the bottom, I have something which actually my wife, may Allah reward her with good, Jazakallahu khairan, when she was editing my slides, she put this little thing at the bottom for me, and I was like thinking, yeah, this is actually a great thing. Correlation does not mean causation. What does that mean? Sounds philosophical, doesn't it? Correlation does not mean causation. Well, just because, and then we can look at specifically this case here, that this gland that's smaller in the man, for example, some men or whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what caused them to be homosexuals. Right? This is what it means. Just because two things happen at the same time, it doesn't mean that one of them caused the other. I'll give you an example. You know this thing that's being thrown around that, in Europe they say that one glass of wine a day is good for your heart. I'm sure you've heard this. As a Muslim, you say it's prohibited. They say, oh yeah, but you guys can't drink alcohol. It's prohibited in Islam. But you know that the studies, the scientific study says that one glass of wine a day is actually good for your heart or liver or whatever they say. I mean, the saying goes that if someone keeps saying a lie over and over and over again, that it becomes fact after a while. Now, we're not going to go to that extent and say that still you're lying by saying what you're saying, but what we'll say is this. We'll say, prove it. Where's the study? One of my friends, an acquaintance actually I had, he's a medical doctor, so he knows what he's talking about. This is his field. And he says to me that that this thing that's going around about a glass of wine is good for you once a day or whatever, he says that's a correlation study. I told him, what do you mean by that, doctor? What do you mean by correlation study? He says to me, it was done in Europe, and people in Europe are already healthier than people in North America. So, and they practice this drinking of wine thing, but they're already healthy to begin with. And I said, man, that makes perfect sense. Because think about it. In North America, here, the capitalist system, the rat race as it's called, is the most aggressive here, materialistic, and everyone is so stressed out and trying to work, 2 jobs, 3 jobs, both husband and wife or whatever, working, and they're already stressed out and they're already unhealthy, eating bad diets and not spending any quality time with family, and it's just about materialism and indulgences in physical things which harm to begin with. So those in Europe, though, are not as affected by the capitalistic lifestyle as those in North America. So they, for example, in Europe, they have, to a certain extent, their food is healthier because some countries, for example, they allow people to consume, raw foods like milk and organic foods and those kinds of things that are out there. People over there don't work as long hours as we do here, and Europe is the European society is more family oriented than the North American one. The family ties in North America here, I mean, they don't even exist. I mean, you don't have any connection of the families. So people in Europe are already healthier anyway, to begin with. So to say that they're healthier because they drink 1 glass of wine a day or 1 cup of wine a day is actually not really an accurate statement, because without the wine, they're already healthier people. They already have less stress. So that study was out. The next thing that happened is in the 90s, someone else comes out, a new biological claim comes out. In 1993, Dr. Dean Hamer of the National Cancer Institute claimed to have discovered concrete evidence for gay genes. So the genes, your DNA, you inherit that. It says homosexual orientation transmitted to males of the X chromosome from the mother, meaning that it came from the mother. This is what contains this attribute of the man being a homosexual. So the orientation of being a homosexual was transmitted to males of the X chromosome from the mother, because the mother has the XX chromosomes, and the male has XY chromosome. Though this study was published, it was when this study was published, it was front page news. It was something, important, and everyone was thinking, wow, finally something to prove it. Nobody followed up what happened after, though. So after the study took place, nobody followed up what took place after to show if the study really was accurate or not. Number one, University of Western Ontario, Western University, which I went to here in London, Ontario, Canada. Right here, down the street from me, not even 5 minutes away from my apartment. They tried to repeat his experiments, that is Dr. Dean Hamer's experiments. They could not find any linkage whatsoever between the X chromosome and sexual orientation. They could not find any linkage whatsoever between the X chromosome and sexual orientation. This is a university that did it, you see. It was pointed out that Hamer's study lacked what's called a control group, a fundamental principle for scientific research. Okay? And what's a control group? A control group is a group in a scientific experiment where the factor being tested is not applied, so that it may serve as a standard for comparison against another group where the factor is applied. So a control group, we have the control group here and we have the other group here, and we're basically pretending, without them knowing, to apply it to them, without applying it to them. Okay, to see if it has a real effect or not. And again, I'm gonna just show you this aspect here, right? For example, this is what I mean by the control group. Okay, a medical study will use two separate groups, giving one set of patients the real medicine. So I'm giving you a medicine that's supposed to cure you or do something to you. And the other, a placebo, in order to rule out what's called the placebo effect. In this particular type of research, the experiment is double blind, meaning the ones who give this placebo, which usually is like a sugar pill or something, that's not the medicine itself, the one given this pill in the control group, and the one receiving this pill, okay, none of them know that this pill is not the real pill, right? While with the other group, they know. So placebo is a harmless pill, medicine or procedure prescribed more for the psychological benefit to the patient than for any physiological effect. Because sometimes you might think, if someone is sick or whatever, and I tell them, listen, I got this amazing medicine for you here. Oh yeah, it has. It's going to cure you and it's going to help you. Oh, that's great. Okay, so what happens? And they take it, and then an hour they go, man, I feel great. I feel much better now. Thanks for that. Even though maybe the medicine I gave them was a sugar pill. So psychologically they felt, oh, I feel great. You gave me medicine. So it's all in their head. You see? That's what a placebo aspect of the control group means, right? So like I said, at the bottom it says, neither the doctors nor the patients are aware of which pill they are receiving, curbing potential research bias, because we have to rule this out. If we don't have a control group in an experiment, and we just have people that know that they're giving this pill to the patient, and all the patients know that they're getting this pill, then everybody will think, we're taking the medicine, and you guys are giving us the medicine, so we've got to feel better. Right? We got to feel better. And in scientific research, you have to have a control group. This is a must. And Dr. Hamer's experiment that he discovered the genes, the gay genes, it turns out that he did not do that. He did not follow standard scientific experiment protocol for this. Now, what happens next here? And I found this article online myself, and I've looked at it, and I just couldn't believe what was in there. In 1994, in the Chicago Tribune, this is 1 year after Hamer's research, because as we said earlier, that in 93, that's when he did this, right? So in 94, in the Chicago Tribune, a junior researcher in Hamer's laboratory, someone who assisted him, who assisted in the gene mapping in the homosexual study, said that Hamer selectively reported his data. So he didn't report every single thing. So she, the junior researcher, outlined this fact and said that he did not report all of his data and he was not objective. She was dismissed from his lab as a result. Now, Unlike the 1993 report on this issue of the gay genes being discovered and all this other stuff, right? Which was front page news. This report in the Chicago Tribune was not front page news like the initial one. Someone obviously wanted not to let people know about it. Yeah, they wanted to report it, but it was not a big deal. And it seems like it's better that people believe that this is something which is a scientific fact, if you want to call it that, or the claim that it is a scientific fact. It wasn't front page news because I guess it didn't make any sense to do that and to make people realize that this guy's study was a flawed one. I mean, like I said, Western University, just down the street from me, did the experiment back in '94, and they couldn't repeat it. They couldn't repeat it. You see, so this Chicago Tribune article or report was not front page news like the initial publication. So the junior researcher's claim was substantiated by the National Institute of Health, and she got another position in a different lab. So I mean, she lost her job with Dr. Hamer, but then she found something else. Now, this National Institute of Health supported her claim that Dr. Hamer was selective in choosing what suited his research to be proven or whatever, and that there was no control group. Right, so she ended up finding something else. Now, if you'd like to learn more about this issue about the homosexuality thing, there's a video here on Digital Mimbar. That's the name of the YouTube channel, by the way, Digital Mimbar. It's titled Homosexuality, Contemporary Issues, Bilal Phillips. You can just, if you'd like to copy that title, Homosexuality, Contemporary Issues, Bilal Phillips, just copy it and paste it in YouTube, and you will find that it'll come up. So there's an article down here which I'm leaving you with as well. It's called The Gay Gene Hoax, exclusive by Ryan Sorba. And Ryan Sorba traced his initial pseudoscience. Pseudoscience means it's not really a science, it's just a claim to be science. Homosexuals hang their hat on. And I read the article. It was in June 30th of 2010, which is obviously many years later, after the study was disproven in 1994. Yet you find that people are still talking about this. And again, I would encourage you to look at this article. It's not very long, actually, but it is an eye-opener. And I would like to invite you to look at that one when you have a chance as well. The final thing I'd like to address here is for anyone who has doubts about Islam, that it's okay for people to be that way, and it's just a natural thing, and you're born with it, and whatever else. In the Quran, in Surah Ash-Shu'ara, which is a chapter titled The Poets, chapter 26 of the Noble Quran, it says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed devil, before saying the verse, أتأتون الذكران من العالمين. This is a very obvious rhetorical question, showing the wrong of the action. It says clearly, do you approach males among the worlds? And then Muhsin Khan, it says in the translation of the meaning, go you in unto the males of the alameen, of mankind. And what does the next verse say? Verse 166, it says, وَتَذَرُونَ مَا خَلَقَ لَكُمْ رَبُّكُمْ مِنْ أَزْوَاجِكُمْ بَلْ أَنْتُمْ قَوْمٌ عَادُونَ. And leave what your Lord has created for you as mates, but you are a people transgressing. And Muhsin Khan's translation says, and leave those whom Allah has created for you to be your wives. Nay, you are a trespassing people. Transgressing, trespassing. And you still want to say that those verses, I can reinterpret them and say, oh no, they mean this and that. And the only thing that was the problem with the people of Lot was only because they were they were highway robbers, and they used to steal from people who were traveling and all this other. Yeah, maybe they did. I think that's mentioned as well. Okay, in another capacity, it is mentioned that they did that, but that wasn't the only reason why God punished them in the end. In fact, the punishment on the people of Lot, if you read about it in the Quran, it's probably one of the most harsh, if not the most harsh punishment that ever happened. In one of the chapters titled Surah Hud, actually, chapter Hud, the Prophet Hud is named after him. If you read in detail the narrative in that one, I mean, if you read it and listen to it, your hair will stand just imagining the situation when the angels came to Prophet Lot and told him that we're here as angels, and because he thought they were human beings, and then the people of Lot saw these good-looking men, because the angels took on the appearance of men, and they wanted to do what they do to people to them, and so Prophet Lot was told to go with his family and not look back at the city of Sodom, and God sent down on each one of them a specific, burning coal or clay on each one of them. After the entire city was flipped upside down, جعل عليها سافلها. In the Quran mentions he basically flipped it upside down, and then he sent down on them rocks, sijil, for each one of them. So, and his wife also was destroyed along with them because she was supporting them and in their transgression. So, I mean, what more do you want than that of proof to show that this is a wrong thing? So if someone comes today and tells me, oh, the science says this about it and it says that, as a believer in Allah and as believers in Allah, we will never accept that. We will not change our religion for anyone and say that, God is going to punish someone for being born that way. We would say that if someone has those tendencies or they think of these things, it's because of the environmental upbringing that they were on. I mean, today we have a world that's full of pornography. People can access pornography online like they access like drinking water, whether they watch these things or the things that you see outside, the profanity, the way that people dress without any modesty. I mean, doesn't that drive people? Doesn't that affect their psychology? I mean, doesn't that affect people's behaviors in this respect, the violent behavior that they have? Anybody with any common sense would see this. So the purpose of today's lesson, honestly, was to show you that Allah knows His creation, and no one can claim otherwise. And if He tells you that this is how you are, then that's how you are as a human being. If He tells you do this, you do it. Don't do this, you don't do it. We can't pretend to know more than God because He's the creator of the heavens and the earth, and He knows best what is for us. Nobody else will know anything in that regard as much as God, or anything for that matter. So I ask God to bless us all and to show us the true way, and make us among His righteous servants in the hereafter when we stand alone in front of Him, when nothing will matter at that point, unless you came to meet God with a sound heart. Thank you very much for listening today, and we will talk and we will see you in the next class.